into this week that some of these teams could potentially clinch a playoff spot. However, other teams are probably hanging by the wire. This is Sports Hour. What is going on? This here. Welcome back to Sports Hour for this week. It is week. We're going into week 10 this week. So week 10 is going to be a very weird week. Might be a very hard week for some of these teams. But for some of these teams, it is going to be all down to this week. Some of these teams are hanging by a thread this week. So it is going to be coming down to this. We'll start off to talk about what happened last week. And last week was an absolute killer for some of these teams. Granted, some teams are still in a position where they're not terrible, but unfortunately, other teams are really not in a good position. Last week, it was a great start for some of these teams. Some of these games were really, really close. There were a few that weren't. The Jets ended up defeating the Athen by a quite on their side. And the Eagles took down to one last minute until the last second. But the real big game was the Dogs and the Panthers game. Now we hope now, according to the hope, was that the Dogs would come back and win this, and they would still have to win by 200 something points. And they didn't come close to that. They lost 202 to 34, and that is a difference of 168 points. So they're way behind. But that wasn't the worst news for them. The worst news was the fact that the Dogs had a really strong first couple weeks, and that might be it. Their playoff hopes are pretty much gone now. The playoff hopes for the Dogs right now. Kristle Jennings, which was one of the players that was in there for last year, one of the best players on that team, unfortunately is out for the season. Has a leg injury, and unfortunately she is going to be out for the entire season. Now technically she probably could come back if they were able to make the playoffs. But the likelihood of making the playoffs right now is very, very unlikely. Pirates and Dragons were actually a really close game. Dragons ended up winning that game in the last few seconds. Actually, it was on penalty shots. They went 2 for 2 in penalty shots. The big one in the Panthers and Dogs game was the fact that at this time, the current NBL record is now Misty Young's. I have the wrong. Misty Long is now at 605 points. She actually ended up taking herself out of the game. And after the first 3 quarters, because he didn't want to take it too hard, and she also didn't want to get injured. So if you don't want to get injured, it's a great position to go for. So right now, Misty Young or Misty Long is number 1 in points overall. Just in points. She's at 605 points. That's 1 point more than most players in those points in a season. We previously held by Raven Knob, who was the Panthers. She doesn't play for the Panthers anymore. I believe that she rated not that plays for another team. She might be retired now. Thinking about it. Right, I think Rivenab has retired at this point. I don't see her on the list. Is she still playing? She is still playing. She plays for the Foxes right now. She is retiring at the end of this year, so her record is going to be not going to matter. She got 604 points in her best season. Misty Long has already done more than that. I'll make sure I have the right name. It's Misty Young and Misty Long. Make sure I have the name right. It's Misty Long. Okay, Misty Long. I have it right. Okay. So Misty Long has 605 points NBL record for a rookie and for in a single season. She's currently still active. Now 604 was a completely different season in context. Alexander Lazar's senior has the next most points at 563, also for the Panthers. The only player that has more points who has not played for the Panthers was Hannah Thomas. She played for 16 seasons and she retired a couple seasons ago. I believe she retired at some point last year. So it is. I don't know if I have where she is. Yeah, Hannah Thomas retired after 16 seasons. She retired. She was one of the players that retired last season, so she's no longer part of this. But she's still, yes, she's one of the most expensive players that ever happened for the, and she still actually is sort of the player that is an owner on the team. She's not a player anymore. She's just going to be on the team. Other games include the Lynx and the Lions. That was a really, really tough game. Lynx and Lions played, and the Lynx ended up coming up with winning that game. That was a big game for the week. The Lynx and Lions. I haven't mixed. I did have it mixed up a little bit, but the Lynx currently are second. The R's are actually ahead of them in context of time. So I think I do have some mixes. I do have some things mixed up here. Move that. Make sure it's right. So the R's currently are first. In that position, they are currently 8-1. I think I have a few things, other things. I might have other things wrong still on here. The real thing is that there are a few teams in the playoff, and they're undefeated and could clinch this week. And they're all undefeated. There are only 3 undefeated teams left in the league. Tigers lost last week. I believe they lost last week. Yeah. Tigers lost to the Foxes. So unfortunately, they are no longer undefeated. And I believe there was another team that also lost last week that was previously undefeated. But the 2 teams that matter are the Saints, the Panthers, and the Jets. That was 3 teams. But these are the 3 teams that are in it. Now, here's the scenario, though. Each of them could. Now, the problem is only one of these 2 teams, between the Panthers and the Saints, are going to clinch. The Panthers, and I have everything over here, Panthers clinch the playoffs with a win, and two of these, not three, or three would be possible too. Would be two of the Bulldogs, Angels, and Bears losing. Funny enough, that's exactly the same scenario. And also, it would be Legends or Hawks have to lose. They can't both lose. They don't have to both lose, but if they both lose, it's possible. I don't believe it's possible for them both to lose. What's the situation? Because the Hawks are playing the Bears in week 10, and the Legends are playing the Angels. So both those games are physical possible wins, but they're very difficult. Now that's not the same thing for the Jets. The Jets can also clinch, but they have a little bit of different. They have a bit of a different scenario. The Jets clinch the playoffs with a win, and all of these three teams losing. So the Lightning, the Warriors, and the Huskies all have to lose. The good news is that the Jets play the Warriors, so really, it just needs to know. Really, this doesn't need to really matter. We'll put this in like a. This doesn't matter because it's gonna be the Lightning and the Huskies have to lose. That's what's gonna have to happen, and they have to beat. So they have to win, and they have to. Then both the Lightning and Huskies have to lose. It's a little bit easier for them, but not too difficult. I did go ahead and do my predictions for last week, and with 15-5, I was best of all those weeks. Everyone else did pretty well in the context too for it. But that being said, there's a lot of things that there are some important games that occur this week. Important, it becomes to a big factor because this week it is going to be the Panthers and Saints that face off. Now, the two main characters. I'm going to put this back to Jay. The two main ones, and obviously the biggest game, are going to be the Panthers and Saints. Now, Panthers, Misty Young has the number one in the league in her points, and number one in 4-point shots. She currently has, let me make sure I have this right. Yeah, currently at this time, 216 attempts. 216 attempts. I want to make sure I'm right with that. 216. She doesn't have all of those. That is equivalent on 800 minutes. Well, unfortunately, doesn't have that many shots made. She's only got 200 4-point shots attempted. Unfortunately, that's also not going to be quite the greatest. She attempted that many. Unfortunately, only about a good majority of her shots. I believe we have the right numbers. She has 102 shots. Okay, so 408 of her points have been from 4-point shots. And the other 605, so 605, the other 197 points have been from 3 points or 2 points. I don't even know if I'm even showing that, for instance. But that is the answer. The other player that's huge, which was a great player as well, which unfortunately isn't on the list for anything special because she is a defensive player of all players. She plays for the Saints. She was drafted as well. I don't remember which time she was drafted. I probably can find that out. It was the pick number 10 has been a really good. And right after that, Mel Yang was picked. All these three players, Misty Long, and Larson, Mel Yang, and have all been really good players. Now, Ann Larson is not a shooter. Let's put it this way. She is a defensive player all the way. She's nothing but defense. The entire entire thing is defense. She has made some shots. I'll admit that she made some of the shots. She's only a 91 overall, but she is one of the best players in the actual team at this time. So it does say this. At the time, she's gotten only 128 points. And at this point in that time, we're at week 9. That is about 14 points a game, which isn't terrible. Versus you have Missy Long, was the same 9 games, has 67 points per game. And honestly, that's actually a little low. Because she probably got a little. She averages about 80 points per game. All games she's played in every game, but she didn't play for a majority. She played in the majority of every game except for this last game, which she did not play in. That's probably why her numbers have gone down somewhat. But she's still one of the better players on the team. I will say this is going to be a tough game. It's all going to come down to this. When it comes down to this. We get to go ahead. I'm going to go to the actual positions of how I am going to pick this week. We have UNC and the Athen. Okay, so right now UNC is one of the worst teams. Athen, one of the worst teams, but UNC is heavily favored. They have 691 points, and they have allowed 1,035 points. They're 39th. They're second to last in points allowed. They're 27th when it comes to defenses, and they're 2-7. Their wins are just not actually going to be impressive enough. I don't really even know which team they actually won against. Off the top of it, I can figure that out. Their wins came from the first couple weeks, unfortunately, I think. Okay, so they won week 1, and their next win was against the Colts. So they've only had 2 hits, and both those teams were pretty bad. So unfortunately, UNC is not really a good team. The Athen, however, haven't won a game yet. They've got half a game. They have a tie. They're 30-37, and to me, they've allowed almost as many points as the UNC has, and they have also done slightly worse when it comes to this. I am going to pick UNC to win this game. Honestly, I can see this game going either way, but UNC is very favored, and I think it's very important. Unfortunately for them, if UNC does win this game, the Athen are likely eliminated from the playoffs. They probably weren't going to make the playoffs in the first place. They're down here at 18th. But if there was some possibility, if they did win, they might stay in the playoffs. But unfortunately, to me, that didn't happen. We go with the Colts and the Beagles. This is a tough one. The Colts currently are actually very bad. They're 25th and 26th. 707 points scored and 843 points allowed. Versus the team they're going to be facing off against, which is the Beagles. They're worst in the league. But the thing is, I think the Beagles are going to win this game. And the real reason I'm going to win this is because the Beagles are seventh. That's right, seventh in the league in defensive player positions. They're not. They are allowed. Unfortunately, the problem is it's going to be a very low scoring game for the reasons the fact that the Beagles have not scored a lot of points. They're 28th in actual scoring. They're seventh overall in defense, and I think that's what's going to have them win this game. We have the Falcons and Knights in this game, and I can't give a miss. The Falcons are likely going to be eliminated from the league. Not eliminated from the league. I said eliminated from the league. That's not what I meant. And what I mean is the context is that this team will likely be eliminated from the playoffs. Like, I mean, so honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they even come close to the playoffs. They're 8-1. They're 8 losses and 1. They're even worse than the team that the other team has a loss. Unfortunately for me, it's just not going to go for them. The Falcons, I predicted at some point, and I don't know if I have that anywhere here. Let's see, I've had that somewhere. You know, which teams I thought were going to make it to the playoffs. I did, in that time, say that I thought the Falcons were going to make the playoffs. Let me just say this, let me rephrase that. They are not making the playoffs. They are terrible. And I don't know where they thought it was going to happen, but the Falcons are really not good. I don't know what it is about it. They are losing some players this next year for the last season, and unfortunately, if one of those players are gone, I don't know what they're doing. Honestly, I don't really know what's going on with the Falcons. How on earth they are losing so many games? Unfortunately, to me, I will say this: Falcons team is really just is going to collapse. Even if they get some good players in the draft next and last draft, it's just not going to go. It's not enough. They're losing they're losing their best players going into it, and they're facing off against the Knights. Now the Knights were the 8th seed, and they won the Ball Bowls last season. They're more of an average-based team. Now they're losing. Let me check here. Make sure I have it right. Nobody. The Knights probably going to end up losing a few players, although the actual limit is eliminated for this last season. There's not going to be a limit. They're not losing anyone. They have their entire team. The Knights are still very good. Sure, they're taking some losses, and they're not going to get not everyone's going to win. But unfortunately, at this point in time, there's really nothing the Falcons can do correctly. They're turning the ball over. They're doing a bunch of stuff that's not going to be it. It is going to be the Knights that win this week. And I do not want to do foremost. We get to go to the Panthers and Saints game. This is a tough one. I'm going to come back to it. We get the Legends and Angels. Legends currently are down here at 5-4, very good 20th and 32nd. So not the best when it comes to defense. Versus you have the Angels. Angels are 24th and 19th. I think the Angels are better than this. Better than the Legends. Unfortunately, I'm looking for one. The Angels, I think, are actually going to lose this game. And unfortunately, this is not good. Now, the good news for this one is good news for both the Panthers and the Saints because they need a win and the Panthers. I think the Legends are going to win this game. Bad news is they also have the Hawks lose, and we'll get to that in a little bit here. We have the Tigers and the Kings. This is a tough one. This is a tough game. They're both really top of the league. Both of them are probably going to end up making the playoffs. The Tigers are 12th and 28 ninth. As for the Kings, they're 15th and 10. So the Kings are better. They're better. They're a better team. Almost. The thing is that the Kings' defense is better, but the offense is better for the Tigers. It is going to be a very tough game. And honestly, I could see this game going either way. In my opinion, it's not going to be an easy game. I'm going to say because the Tigers did lose last week. This is the Tigers. Who did the Tigers play last week? Tigers faced the Foxes. They shouldn't have lost that game. And unfortunately, it's going to be another loss for the Tigers. The last week was when the Kings faced off. The Kings faced off a team who was really, really tough. They lost to that game as well, but they actually put up a really good fight. And to be honest, I might switch this because this is a very tough one for me. I'm going to pick the Kings this week, but I can see this game going really either way. Ravens and Bulldogs, I don't think there's a question. The Bulldogs are way better than this. In context, the Ravens are probably eliminated from the playoffs. They're not technically eliminated from the playoffs, but a loss this week will eliminate them from the playoffs. 100%. A win, they might still probably still be eliminated from the playoffs, unfortunately, because of the way everything else worked out. But they're playing a team that is really good, and a context for it, we do have it. The Bulldogs are 19th and 31st, so not best, but the Ravens are terrible on both sides. It's going to be the Bulldogs who win this game. Okay, we got the Giants and Pirates game. The Giants are currently 4-5, pretty good, not bad in those positions. They have a great defense, not that good as an offense, unfortunately. Which is the exact opposite for the Pirates. They're actually worse. The Pirates are actually not much are worse, and they're a lot better games. It's gonna be the Giants that win this game. Obviously, I can see this game going for the Pirates, but this isn't gonna happen. We got the Werewolves and Indians. The Indians surprised us. They won. And here's the bad news. Werewolves need to win this game, otherwise they're probably going to be eliminated from the playoffs. Indians, sure, they need to win this game, but they're kind of not in a position like, we are going to be gone. We're going to be eliminated from the playoffs if we don't win this game. They're not going to be eliminated from the playoffs. Currently, the Indians are not in the playoffs, but they're 14th. They're not actually that bad. They are the lowest of each of all teams that are in that position. But I think because of the way other teams are, I think it's going to be a very important week. I think I might have missed some one. But to put it in this way, it's going to be very, very tough for these two teams, and I can honestly say it's going to be a pretty big bout for those. But I think honestly, the Werewolves did show a little bit, quite a bit last week, and if you look at the Werewolves stats, the Werewolves did beat the Little Cats, who were better than them. So in context, I think with this upward slide, they did beat them. So I could see them actually coming in and winning this game. Sure, the Indians did win this last week as well, but I don't think that's really much of a difference because they did play defense. And unfortunately, Kings did actually have two of those players that were in there. It did lead the game. They're fine. They're going to go back into the game. They just happen to be uh, they collided with the pole, so they just got knocked out at the end of the third quarter. So I don't think that's a very big difference. I'm going to pick the Indians to win this game. I don't think it's going to be a very hard. It's not going to be an easy game, but I'm going to pick the Indians to win this game. I think it's going to be very close. Dragons and Foxes. Okay, the Dragons and Foxes. Oh boy, Dragons, Foxes. The Dragons currently 2-7, kind of on the edge. Probably not going to be eliminated this week. They are currently down there. They're below. They're actually below the Dogs, but not by much. They have the Foxes, who are in the playoffs as we speak right now. Playoffs. Currently, the Foxes are currently in the 7th position in the playoffs. In my opinion, the Dragons are going to probably miss the playoffs. I did say, I think, at some points that I did think the Dragons were going to make the playoffs. And honestly, I think they could still do it. But unfortunately, right now, this is going to come down to it. I do think the Foxes have the better team. I'm going to go with Foxes to win this week. The Hawks and the Bears. Okay. This is an important game. Hawks need to lose, unfortunately, versus the Bears. But it's kind of confusing because the Hawks actually need to win this game, but the Legends have to lose. It's something very complicated to put it this way. If the Hawks lose and the Bears win, the Bulldogs and Angels both have to lose over the Panthers or the Saints to get into a playoff position. This is tough to me to win this because both these teams are very, very tough. It's going to be tough, and honestly, this is going to be for a very good position. I think the winner of this game, I am actually going to say right now, it is going to be the Bears that win this game. I'm going to say the Bears win this game by just a little bit. They're not that much wins, but the problem for me is if you look at the Bears, they're 16th, and if you look at make sure I have it down, the Hawks are currently 9th. The Bears are slight in the defensively. They're both about the same in defense. I think they're going to get surprised. I think the Bears are going to win this game, and it's going to be a very tough matchup. We got the Dogs and the Browns. Okay, Dogs need to win. Unfortunately, they're probably not going to win. The Browns currently are 1-8. The Dogs currently are 3-6. At this time, the Bears and also the Dogs have to win out to win the division. It is impossible. To win the division, they have to win out. And the Panthers have to lose out. And unfortunately, if you look at week 11, look at the Panthers. Panthers play the Legends. Panthers play the Colts. Panthers play the Cardinals. Panthers play the Knights twice. And then they play the Angels. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. To me, I think it's not going to make a difference. And to me, it's going to say it's not going to be the Dogs to win this game. I think the Dogs are too hurt. Unfortunately, maybe if they come back to it, I'm going to pick the Browns to win this game. And I don't think the Browns are very good, but I think they're going to be better than the Dogs this week. Because the Dogs have the worst defense in the league. We have the Texans and the Cardinals. Give me the Cardinals. I just don't see it. The Cardinals currently are actually in a position where they're trying to get basically the number 1 seed. I would say number 2 seed probably, based on the context of everything else. But they're very good. They're very good. They're a very good team versus the Texans, who are not a good team. 35th in offense and 15th in defense. I'm going to say right now, Texas is not a good enough scores to actually win that game. We get the Leland Cats and Lions. Leland Cats currently are the Leland Cats are 3rd and 5th, both really good in both positions. As for the Lions, they're trying to get back into a position where they could be the leader of the entire league, of the entire division. They're not necessarily going to be in the position, but currently ours are 4th. The Lynx currently actually have a better position than I think actually currently, if I'm right, ours are actually above them when it comes to it. If I'm correct, I might have that wrong. Let me check something here. Do ours and Lynx play at some point? Also, I think I'll be able to make sure they play or not. I don't think they did. It doesn't look like they actually play. So one thing is that they will not play during the season. Yeah, it looks like the R's and Lynx do not play this season, so they probably should, and they will play that. They will play 2 times next season because it'll be forced. Based on that, it's a tough one. I'm gonna give the Lynx, the Leland Cats, the win here. But in context here, it could go either way. We have the Huskies and the Dolphins. Give me the Dolphins. I just don't see any chance the Huskies where they got demolished last week. We'll get the Huskies. The Huskies currently last week got beat by Otters in a terrible manner. The previous week they got a pretty big matchup. They got pretty close, and then they actually beat the Beagles. So they're not terrible, but they're not going to beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins have no Yang in one of the number highest seeded player. Currently number 10 in the league. I'm incorrect with that. 10 in the league? Yeah, so 10th in the league in points scored. We get a look at the Supermen and the Bobcats. Now, this is a tough game. I believe this is a divisional game. Supermen and Bobcats. Okay, Supermen and Bobcats not. Supermen is 7-2. Bobcats are really trying to make sure they're 7-2 as well. To me, it's gonna be tough. In my opinion, it is going to be the Bobcats that win this week. They have got the better team overall when it comes to defense. Offensively, it's going to be pretty much a struggle on both sides, but it's going to be very, very important. We get the R's and Chargers, another game. Now, this one is not a divisional game either. 18-20 for the Chargers versus the Otters, who are currently first, 6-2. I do think the Otters, unfortunately, are a better team. I skipped the Lightning and Packers. Lightning and Packers. Lightning currently are 6-3, 8-27. Versus you have the Packers, who are dead last and are going to be probably eliminated from the playoffs. Somehow they're 9th to 7th in points. Not gonna matter. Lightning are gonna win that game. Lynx and Stars. Stars really would love to win this game. If the Lynx do that, they're gonna stay up there at 9-1, and will be still fighting for that first place position. And Stars aren't that good. It's going to be the Lynx to win that game. And then we got the Warriors and the Jets. This is another important game because if the Jets do win this game, they go to 10-0 over the Warriors. And if they win, the Lightning and Huskies both lose. Huskies could lose. I can see the Huskies doing that. And the Lightning also lose. Let's see, the Lightning playing here. Then they are going to clinch a playoff spot. In context here, I think it's definitely going to be the Jets that win this game. I don't think the Warriors are going to be quite good. Now we go to the game of the week. Now the two players I should be wanting to watch here are going to be the two main players. You got Ann and Larson. I think if the Larson's defensive plan stands, the Saints could in fact win this game. The problem is the Panthers are all offense, and the one player that's going to be a problem is going to be Misty Long. Misty Long, as I said, is the number one in the league when it comes to points. Number one in the league and the most points scored by a single rookie. She's still pretty. I think both these players, both these players are still very good players. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be going out for it. It's going to be so tough, and those teams have so much to play for. That with Ann Larson, if Ann Larson does a lot of stuff and is able to hold down the Misty Young, there is a very good chance the Saints can win this game. And if we look at the position for these two teams, the Panthers have the most points in the league and the best defense in the league. Is the only problem I say here. They have the Saints have the second most and the fourth most defense. So honestly, it comes down to this: if Ann Larson can hold down Misty Long, there is a good chance that the Saints win this game. Unfortunately, if this does not happen, then the Panthers will win this game. This is the toughest game for me to pick, and I think it's the toughest from all season. And I have to go with the unfortunate position. I do think it's going to be such a close game. I will say this is going to be one of the highest. It should be one of the highest scoring games, or it's going to be one of the lowest scoring games, depending on how deep it is. I am going to pick the Panthers to win this week. However, I will not be surprised if the Saints win this game, because it's just going to be so close and so hard. Panthers. The only problem is I think Panthers are number one in the league, and Panthers will probably end up clinching, if not this week, next week. Because the Panthers have an easy game next week, or a pretty easy game next week. They got their Legends next week. Unfortunately for me, it's going to be such a hard game. That game is like the hardest game I've had to call in the position. But to compare those two team players, because those are the two players that are going to matter. Misty Long, at this current time has 605 points, an NBL record, and NBL rookie record in a season. Versus you have the player you don't get much of. You don't really get much of this, but you do see it every once in a while. You have the other, you have Ann Larson, who has number 2 in total defense. Number 1 right now, I believe, right here. Number 1 right now, I believe, at this current time. Currently number 1 in the league is also Misty Long. So they're actually voted. Misty Long is number 1 in offense and defense in addition. She's not as good when it comes to stealing. She's the best player when it comes to stealing in the context right now. Second best player. And Larson has the 3rd most points in stealing. But it comes down to this. I really am going to be excited this week. When that game happens, I will be watching this game. That game live for it. That game happens on Monday at 9. This is going to be the toughest game to even watch for it. So, in context, I will not be surprised. I do not think, in any scenario, that this game is going to be a blowout. No chance. It's going to be a very low-scoring game or a very high-scoring game. It really depends. I could say right this: it's going to be a low-scoring game if Misty Long and are both held in check. That both check each other and keep themselves in position. Then it's going to be a very low-scoring game. If neither one of them can control each other, then it's going to be a very high-scoring game. And unfortunately, I will say this: the Panthers will likely win that game in the context of the offensive position. That is it for Sports Hour for this week. This is a longer episode for it, but it's very important to note that next week, week 11, will likely have a clinch at some point. Even if there is not a clinch this week, which does not necessarily happen, but if there's not a clinch this week, there will be a clinch next week. I will see you guys next in the next episode for week 11, and that is it for the NBL for week 10. See you guys next week.